Hello, welcome to Beyond Organic Wine. I'm Adam Huss. Thank you so much for listening. If you're listening for the first time, Beyond Organic Wine is about the ecology of wine, the future of wine, and the regenerative renaissance as seen through the lens of wine. If you're ready to go on a journey that leaves traditional wine thought far behind and explores the edges and margins of viticulture that can change the way we not only grow wine, but the way we think and understand our role as part of the ecosystem of wine, then this podcast will probably light your fire. If you'd like to support this podcast and the work that goes into each episode, please subscribe to Beyond Organic Wine Substack at beyondorganicwine.substack.com. And you also get full access to all the podcasts, resources, and writing that happens there. If you'd like to sponsor an episode, please email me at connect@organicwinepodcast.com. And last but definitely not least, please follow and leave a great review in your podcast app. It's immensely helpful. Thank you for your support. Also, just a heads up, since it's topical with this episode, we will be releasing ticket sales very soon for the upcoming Embracing Hybrid Grapes in California conference that is happening this January 26, 2026 at UC Davis. Don't miss it. You can check out embracinghybridgrapes.com to see the website now. The tickets will be posted there shortly, and I will let you know about that. Now enjoy the episode. Editing grape prejudice on Wikipedia. Yesterday I spent the afternoon editing Wikipedia entries about hybrid grapes because they were either factually wrong, omitted important and relevant information, or pushed prejudiced perspectives, and sometimes did all of this. Sometimes the edits were small but important. In the entry on hybrid grape, a contributor thought it important to mention that they, quote, exhibit a mix of traits from their various parentages. This is true and relevant. And that hybrids with Vitis labrusca in their parentage, quote, have a strong candied or wild strawberry aroma, end quote. While I applaud this description, which isn't the negative description I've found in other labrusca mentions, I changed this to read, quote, can have a strong candied or wild strawberry aroma, depending on many factors, end quote. Labruscana have come a long way since the original 50-50 crosses 200 years ago, and Concord, with its 75% Labrusca parentage, is very different from, say, Marquette, which has Labrusca in its parentage, but is the result of many, many crosses, including quite a few species. The similarities of flavor between Concord and Marquette are extremely minimal, and they do not share a candied aroma, despite both having Labrusca in their parentage. Additionally, I've had Labruscana that were picked and made in a way that none of these quote-unquote characteristic aromas were present. But it's true that Labruscana can have those flavors depending on many factors. Of course, that begs the question of why even mention these things if you have to qualify them so extensively? Would it be relevant to say that, quote, grapes with Vitis vinifera parentage can have aromas of cat piss and tar depending on many factors? This is factually true, but does it matter to understanding vinifera? Or does it actively confuse people who haven't been exposed to the wide variety of vinifera cultivars? This double standard results from wine writers, likely MWs or other quote-unquote experts, who have had very little exposure to anything but vinifera culture and see the world through the prism that limits quote-unquote fine wine to only European pure vinifera grapes, and usually only a select few of those. Several of the most egregiously prejudiced lines in some entries about the flavors of hybrid grapes were actually cited, and the citation linked to entries in the Oxford Companion to Wine. So it seems more than just Wikipedia needs to be edited. While vinifera culture has been navel-gazing for the last half-century or more, the rest of the world has continued to adapt and change, and, surprise, vinifera culture finds itself completely out of touch with the current realities in wine. But more than lack of awareness permeates entries about hybrids. I edited the entry on the grape Kyoho, which started with the line, Kyoho grapes are a fox grape, Concord-like, cross, popular in East Asia. The term fox grape is again outdated and also inaccurate. Fox grape is a term given to the crop wild relative, Vitis labrusca. The children of the sexual reproduction of labrusca with other species of grapes can no longer be called the fox grape. This might be semantic. I know many people have called grapes with labrusca parentage fox grapes, even if not entirely labrusca. But it might also be a dog whistle. What they seem to want to imply strongly is that Kyoho is a foxy grape, for those of you who know what I mean, wink wink. What troubled me most was that the writer felt the need to put this piece of information as the first line in the entry about Kyoho. So someone coming to Wikipedia to learn about Kyoho now must see it through the lens of fox grape. And what does that mean, and how should I feel about it? How relevant to its existence and importance in the world of grapes is the fact that it has similar parentage to Concord and is a fox grape, quote unquote. I'm relatively sure that's a designation that neither its breeder nor the billions of people who love it would ever apply to it. So I changed the entry about Kyoho to read, quote, Kyoho grapes are the most planted grapes in the world by area, and added a citation. They are a variety of hybrid grape popular in East Asia, end quote. Isn't that a more accurate, helpful, and unbiased introduction to a grape you might be trying to learn more about? Then there were the really big changes. The history section of the entry for hybrid grapes in Wikipedia read, quote, during the first half of the 20th century, various breeding programs were developed in an attempt to deal with the consequences of the phylloxera louse, which was responsible for the destruction of European vineyards from 1863 onwards. After extensive attempts, grafting European varieties onto North American rootstock proved to be the most successful method of dealing with the problem, end quote. I changed it to read, quote, during the first half of the 20th century, various breeding programs were developed in an attempt to deal with the consequences of globalization, which resulted in Europeans and European Americans bringing the phylloxera louse from North America to Europe, as well as several North American parasitic fungi like black rot, downy mildew, and powdery mildew. Phylloxera devastated European vineyards throughout the late 1800s. While many hybrids were able to successfully resist phylloxera, as well as the novel fungal pressures, European producers chose to graft their susceptible traditional single-species European varieties onto North American resistant rootstock, end quote. I spent a lot of time rewriting to choose this wording and version of history telling, and I won't go into all the details. But one of the things that I think is worth noting is the line ending the previous version saying that grafting, quote, proved the most successful method of dealing with the problem, end quote. What bothers me about that line is that I don't think grafting actually dealt with the problem. The problem wasn't phylloxera. The problem was an unwillingness to adapt. The problem wasn't with the world out there, it was with our prejudices and perspectives inside us. If phylloxera was the problem, hybrid grapes did and do deal with that problem and the other quote-unquote problems of grape-loving fungi. But Europeans instead chose not to adapt, but rather employed a technique that allowed them to continue to grow their susceptible varieties of vinifera, i.e. grafting. However, this left the problem of the fungi, which they dealt with by using new chemical pesticides. Again, this didn't deal with the problem, actually. It kept their viticulture stagnant and enabled them to avoid adapting. What this wiki edit, and really all of the edits I've done shows, is that the problem was never dealt with. The real problem continues to shape the thinking of those who have come to know wine through this culture. And it comes out in the way they write about wine and grapes on Wikipedia. Until we free our minds from the prejudice of vinifera culture, we'll continue to kick this problem down the road for someone else to deal with, for someone else to try to edit. After spending a couple hours editing, I did find a bit of encouragement, though. I realized I could see the stats associated with my account, and I discovered that thousands of people have visited the pages where I attempted to edit out prejudice and misinformation. My hope is that these are new wine lovers, new wine journalists, looking for unbiased information about these grapes. Maybe by learning about these grapes without the slant of a vinifera-centric perspective, they will be part of the generation that actually deals with the problems that cause the problems. Hey, thanks so much for listening. This is an article that I'm offering for free as a sample of some of the kinds of writing that I do on Substack at beyondorganicwine.substack.com. Joining me there is an amazing way to support this work and the work of the people that I highlight through Beyond Organic Wine. So I hope to see you there, and thanks so much.